Hey, what's up? It's Mr. Lopez. Just want to talk a little bit of how I'm planning on doing things. Now it is a plan, and things might change. Who knows? The school might tell me to do it a certain way as well. But for me, I think given the choice that I have to be prepared to do stuff in the classroom and outside the classroom, and it could just change from week to week. Uh, this is the way I'm gonna go because it's the less stressful way and it's the most efficient way for the way I like to do things. The tools I'm gonna use are obviously Zoom. I'm gonna use PearDeck interactive slides. I'm gonna use Boom cards for centers and independent learning. I'm gonna use iExcel because iExcel is a good tool, at least for math. And then I'm gonna use GoFormative for my assessments, and that's what I'm gonna use. Now, in this video, I'm going to talk a little bit about GoFormative, and that's going to be towards the end. And I'll tell you why I like it. I'm going to tell you why I like it at that point, and I think you'll appreciate it as well. But in the beginning, I want to talk about Zoom and PearDeck. Excuse me. So I want to talk about Zoom and PearDeck. If you never used it, PearDeck's like interactive Google Slides. Like you'll make the slides in Google like you always do, and then you'll add interactivity to these slides. So what this does is it helps the students not just sit there and kind of zone out on you. They actually have to kind of pay attention to you, and they actually have to participate in the lesson. And what I don't want is these kids zoning out on me, because if the school tells them like, oh, you got to be on Zoom for this time, I don't want the kids to just log in and just kind of stare at me, because that's not going to help me and it's definitely not going to help them. So I want to use PearDeck to add interactivity where they actually have to participate. Each one of them has to participate, and I'll be able to show them like what the class is doing. Like the kids will do the interactive slide, and then I can pause it, and then we review their work. Like all their material just pops up, and we can take a look at what each one of them did, and it's completely anonymous. They're not embarrassed, but they do see and they do discuss why. Oh, look, why did Jenny do this problem correctly? And I'm sorry, no, it's anonymous, so there's no names. Why did this student do it right, or why did this? What kind of mistakes did this student make, and how could they change it so they don't make those mistakes? That's what I like about it, because you're interactive, and then also you can go back and you can I'm not sure what the word is, but you can talk about the problems. You can talk about, oh, what happened good, what was good and what was bad about this. So that's why I like using PearDeck. Now in the classroom, it works awesome because you can have it. Well, technically the teacher would have a projection, and they would be showing the results of the students' slides. So I would be presenting, PearDeck would be on the board. The student would see a very similar thing on their iPad where they would be able to interact with the slide that I'm presenting. And then I could pause, and then we can review the work on the board. Now, that's perfect because the kid is using their iPad and then looks up and then reviews the work on the board. But what I noticed last night, and some of you might already know, is that when I'm zooming, what I have is being presented on their iPad. So at home, it's a little bit different. What happens is they have two things to look at on their iPad. They have the PearDeck presentation slide that normally would be on the projector, but I'm sharing it on my computer via Zoom, so it's on their iPad. And then they also have a Safari window where they're interacting with the slide. So they have Zoom, and then they have a Safari window, and that's what I don't like about this. But then it's the best tool to use, so I'm still going to use it, and I'm going to kind of work around this because honestly, there's not enough real estate on the iPad where you can have both windows at the same time and be able to use it effectively. Now, what I've thought about is this: it's either option one, the student has PearDeck, and I don't know if that picture actually shows it, or you can see it that well, but you have PearDeck you have a Zoom sending out PearDeck, what they would normally see on the board, and it's on their iPad. And on top of that, there's a Safari window that has the interactive slide that they're interacting with. And if you look at option one, I mean, that's a tiny little window. And I mean, yeah, some of these kids have tiny fingers, or maybe it's just me that I have big fingers and it's just not working out. For me, it's just too small, you know. But some kids, they work small. But then if I give them like a multiplication problem and I want them to show it to me in standard, you know, do a standard operation on it, they're not going to have that much room to do this math. And they might do it, but it's going to be all squished. And it's going to be confusing for me, and it's going to be confusing for them, and that's the one thing I don't like. So there's option two. Option two is same iPad, but they're toggling back and forth. I present on Zoom my PearDecks, and then at the point where I switch to an interactive slide or present them an interactive slide, that's when I say, okay, now go ahead and toggle to Safari and do the PearDeck on Safari. And that way they switch the window. So one, they're on Zoom, and then I give them the interactive slide, and then they toggle to Safari, do the interactive slide. After like a minute, I pause, I lock it, I tell the students to come back to Zoom, and then we discuss. We look at the answers that they've given me, or the things that I've asked them to do. And then and we just work back and forth. And it's like a toggle thing. And for me, that's like not the best, but it's a little bit better than the first option. Now, the ultimate option for this to work, the way it works in the classroom, and it might be possible, and it would probably be possible because a lot of these kids do have cell phones or some other tool at home that they can use for the internet, and that's what I would tell them to do to have the best experience, and I will have the best experience teaching with these tools. Is option three, where they have a cell phone or they have something else and they Zoom with that, and then so they're dedicating that tool just for Zoom. And then the school iPad is dedicated to the PearDeck slides, and that way they can do the work on their iPad on the interactive PearDeck slides. And then when I start presenting, like, oh, let's take a look at what happened here or what kind of mistakes were made here, they get that information on the phone or the second tool. Yeah, let's just call it phone. They can see that on the phone, so all they're doing is just moving their eyes. They go to the phone to look at presentation. They look at the responses that their fellow classmates gave. They can discuss it. And then when it's time to interact with the slides, they just look down and they use PearDeck on their iPad. To me, that's the most comfortable one, and I think that's one that I would push for. But if the kid doesn't have a second tool to use for Zoom, then option two is probably the best one. And then there might be kids who are completely okay with option one, you know. But so that's kind of like the flow for working with these tools. It's gonna be challenging to try to relate this over the phone initially, but once the kid figures it out, I don't see a problem. Option two is very usable. Option one, I mean, it's usable too, you know. It just depends on how fat their little fingers are. And then option three is probably like the best one. So that's my logical thinking about PearDeck and Zoom being used at the same time. And I think it'll work. So I'm gonna go with that. Now there might be something else that you might want to go with, and that's fine. But I'm just kind of trying to do what's best, because I could use this in the classroom and I can use it out of the classroom, and it doesn't really matter. There's not much change in preparation. I mean, it's just It's just a matter of making the Google Slides, adding PearDeck interactive slides to them, and then just sending it out via Zoom. And to me, that's pretty easy, and it's just like being in a classroom. So that's my thought on that. Hey, I know I said I was gonna start talking about GoFormative for my assessments, but the video is already 10 minutes long. I think I'll just make another video just specifically on GoFormative. So bye.
Quiet. Quiet.
If we could just get back to May 1.